welcome. What's up, everyone? It is 7:01 p.m. on Tuesday, January 25th. 7:01 p.m., I should say, on the East Coast. This is Community Conversations with Ethan. Well, it's not really with Ethan. It is with Ethan because I'm here, but it's not necessarily with Ethan. I guess somebody else could be community conversating, which is not a word, but I like to use it. Anyway, if you're just joining us, say hello. Please let us know you're here. I don't know why it's us. It's just me, but let us know you're here. It's Fran and I. That is not true. It's not just me. Let's see tonight. Let's go with cold weather or warm weather. No, I don't know. I like that. Hey, Beth. Okay. Do you like snow? Yes or no? Snow? Really struggling with this question today. Yeah. Do you like snow? Because I like snow because in the mountains for a trip and it was snowing and I thought it was really cool because I've always lived in the South. So there you go. Are you a fan of snow? I like that. So like for those of us that grew up in the South, it's kind of like a novelty. But for those of you in the North, it's like, no, I'm out. Peace. So Beth is a fan of snow. Hey, Raven. Welcome. That was funny. I didn't do that on purpose. That was funny. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you found us. Hey, John. Good to see you. Eritrea. I hope I said that correctly. There's Mike Sizemore in the house. I just realized today I have OCD. Well, then you have come to the right place. And this is a great spot to be. Hey, Grace. Good to see you. Leanne, you look like a famous actor. All right. Yep. Mark Ruffalo. And I am Mark Ruffalo. Unless, Leanne, you were thinking Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, someone else. But I do get Mark Ruffalo quite often. And I can't complain. Raven, I'll give you a lowdown of what's going on. We'll get started in just a couple minutes. Just like the people to come in, say hello. Hi, Nick. Look forward to your question. Yeah, that is true, Grace. I was an actor and did appear on some TV shows, including Dexter. Although I wouldn't consider myself famous. And IOCDF just gave you a shout out, Raven. So it's awesome. There's Love Lana. How are you? Okay, let's get started. We have lots to talk about tonight. In the meantime, you like snow? We like pro snow or no snow? I just coined that. That's mine. My name is Ethan Smith. Valerie Andrews in the house, watching snow on television, right? For sure. So welcome to Community Conversations. My name is Ethan Smith. I'm a national advocate for the International OCD Foundation, which simply means I have OCD and I'm not going to stop talking about it. I'm just not. So very quickly, some housekeeping, and then if you're new, I'll give you some basics on what we're doing here and what we're talking about, and we'll go from there. So, hey, Betsy, and I see Rachel's here, and oh my goodness, Anna. Hey, Anna, good to see you. All right, so this community conversation is intended to serve as educational content and is not intended to replace therapy. For treatment-related questions, please be sure to work with your local provider or contact a local clinician. The International OCD Foundation is not a crisis hotline. It should not be used if you're in distress or feel unsafe. If you are in a crisis or ever feeling suicidal or unsafe, please go to your local emergency room, call 911, or call the suicide prevention hotline at 800-273-8255. We always want to be respectful of others and be kind and create a safe space as possible. So we like to have open, candid, vulnerable conversations. Keep in mind, though, that we are on social media. We are recording. This will be on the social media space for many years to come. So just keep that in mind. But with that being said, please know that we are here to support you. You are here to support us, and we are here to support one another. Finally, and yeah, Leanne, we can absolutely ask questions at any time. Ethan commercials. Thank you, Katie. And hey, Nikki, my friend in Dublin. Oh, we've got a live group today. I'm super excited. So just a quick overview about this conversation. This is a little bit different than all the other live streams. The IOCDF hosts, they're all incredible and amazing and all do different things. But this is really about conversations with you and us having conversations with each other. Think of this as a one-on-one conversation with me, and I'm going to have a one-on-one conversation with you. So You drive the questions, you drive the comments, you drive the topics. This is all about what you all want to talk about. I do not come in with a preconceived topic unless you tell me like this is what we want to talk about. So really the floor is y'all's. I always have questions and I can always come up with stuff to talk about. But 100%, hey Deirdre, 100%, this is about you. And I will always be. Did you just post a link to my commercials, Katie? Okay, ignore Katie's comments. Totally kidding. So, and hey, Fran's online as well. This is awesome. So, yeah, keep in mind, whatever you want to talk about is fair game. And I'm an open book. So I will speak to my lived experience, both with struggling and suffering with OCD, with my recovery and maintenance and management of OCD, and my experience as an advocate. So that's what this is about. So my first question is, what questions do you have? How can I support you? What do you want to talk about? We go in order. So I'll give, a few seconds or a few minutes to fill in the comment threads and see what you all want to talk about tonight. And then if nothing pops up, we can definitely dive into some stuff. Also have a special treat for the end of the night. Last stream, we talked about a coupon code because I was wearing some OCD swag. So Fran behind the scene has hooked it up. We have a coupon code for the IOCDF merch store. I will give that code out at the end of the night or the end of the stream. Either way, it's kind of cruel. I feel like it's like one of those radio shows, like stay tuned for the clue. And then, 3 hours later, you're like, I need the clue. I'll give it out sooner. So Syntax at 7:07 p.m. asks, what about investigating the devaluation of orderliness in relation to other states of being? That's a great question. I have no clue what it means. I appreciate it. If you want to rephrase it in the form of something, I'm joking, but in all honesty, I did say you can ask anything. And let me try to decipher. I don't get stumped very often. I'm wondering if you're asking in relation to OCD, in relation to anxiety, and also, I mean, with orderliness, is often or many times. Oh, hey, Cindy, and hey, Pink, is oftentimes obviously associated with OCD. So orderliness, I don't know that it's a state of being, and I don't know what investigation or studies that's been looked into, but Syntax, I take all questions very seriously. So if you want to maybe rephrase in a way that I'm not that smart, but I will do my best to answer your question, Syntax. Hey, Alexandra's here. Hey, Alexandra, and Eric B. Okay, Leanne asks at 7:08 p.m. So I'm wondering, would working on my avoidance behaviors toward COVID, I don't go out, etc., do you think that is sensible or crippling and dysfunctional in the face of COVID and its spread? Thank you. Great question, Leanne. So, you were absolutely not alone in the anxiety that COVID is creating for everyone. You don't need OCD for COVID to create anxiety, for sure. And number two, from the beginning with COVID, we saw it hit our community very hard. And, it depends on what your symptoms and subtypes are, depending on how it cripples you, using your words. So there's some things we can glean, right? You can definitely live a value-driven life and still be responsible when it comes to COVID. Obviously, when we ignore our OCD, it feels very irresponsible, right? So OCD wants us to listen to it. It wants us to do what it wants us to do. And it very much keeps us black and white and sort of in a stranglehold. And when we engage in compulsions, and avoidance is a big one, right? It's very hard to live into your values and move toward things that you care about when you're listening to OCD and engaging in compulsions or avoidance. All of it's very complicated and difficult. Now, what makes COVID a little trickier is it feels, it's real, right? So, and actually, a lot of these things are real. There's real event OCD. There's the reality. And I'll explain more in a minute, but I think it feels so palpable. People are talking about it. It feels like an imminent threat or danger. So then it becomes, well, wait a second. Am I being irresponsible, like really irresponsible, if I ignore my OCD and not do? So what does that mean? early on, we talked about the guidelines, the CDC, WHO, health organizations, and, they came up with some stuff. Now, whether it's held up or not, that remains to be seen. But we know some things. We know that wearing a mask helps. We know that being vaccinated, if that's your choice, helps. We know that washing your hands and sanitizing 20 seconds helps, right? So we want to do some of those things in accordance with the experts. Now, that doesn't mean that these things aren't going to change. It doesn't mean that the information that we have is going to change, but all we can do is what we're told by the experts. Now, our OCD will never be satisfied with doing just that. If we're supposed to wash our hands for 20 seconds, we want to do 25 or 30. And did I wash enough? And maybe I should wash one more time. And same with hand sanitizer. And same with, is my mask good enough? Should I get a better mask? You really go down a rabbit hole of things. I think it is absolutely sensible to work on your avoidance. And, we never want to compare ourselves to other people's struggles or what they're going through. So, Leanne, the real question becomes is, what is realistic for you? What is a realistic goal for you? You wrote, I don't go out. Does that mean you don't go outside at all? Does that mean you don't go to the grocery store? Does that mean you don't go see friends, right? There's different variations of it. So for instance, if you literally don't leave your house, start small. Go outside, take a walk around the block, go in the backyard for 5, 10, 20 minutes, sit in the sun, go down to your mailbox and get the mail, whatever increments that are meaningful to you. If you're doing this, but you're really nervous to go out and do things, banking, grocery store, like sort of activities of daily life, then what does that look like and how does that feel safe? The reality is we have very little control over most things in life. We only can control our behavior, right? So COVID feels like an imminent threat. Things feel more dangerous now than they are. But in reality, the uncertainty that exists right now is no different than the uncertainty that existed before COVID. You could walk out in the street and still get hit by a car. You could get hit by a stray bullet. You could, a myriad of things could happen to you. There's always you get in a car accident, right? All of these uncertainties still existed, but we were willing to live with the possibility and risk that they might in order to live a value-driven life. And really, COVID is no different. We do what we can to protect ourselves. Everybody's level of protection is different. You don't need to match what somebody else is doing. You need to do what's right for you and your family. But there is a line where that crosses over from protection into like what OCD wants you to do. And so now, Leanne, if you straight up told me, and I know we're spending some time on this, but this is important. My word is by no means gospel. This is just my experience and what I've heard other experts say. But there's extenuating factors. Leanne, if you told me that you were immunocompromised, if you were diabetic, if you had if you were a recipient donor, organ transplant, if you had no immune system, right? You should be very careful about going out, way more so. I have a friend who's a kidney transplant. She does not go out until, there's some sort of antibodies or more protection out there. So this isn't to apply to everyone, but you have to look at your own situation, dig deep and ask yourself, am I really living toward my values? Am I healthy? Am I willing to take an educated risk and move forward with my life in a way that's meaningful? So absolutely sensible to face things and get uncomfortable. We can't have certainty that we aren't going to get COVID, but we can take realistic, necessary precautions and still try to live a value-driven, meaningful life. Leanne, I hope that helped. Feel free to ask more questions for sure. Grace, at 7:08 p.m., how can I be more motivated, dedicated to work on exposures for OCD outside of ERP therapy sessions? Currently finding it hard to work on exposures outside of therapy because I often cannot sit with the anxiety without engaging in compulsions. Great question, Grace. This is a great question for many, many levels. And I think it's a great, yeah, it's easy to do, or I should say easier to do when you're in a therapist's office. And it's a lot harder to do outside when you don't have that support. And really the magic to ERP therapy is what you do outside of the therapist's office. It's what you do on a minute by minute, hour by hour, daily basis, right? It's how many times you're willing to sit with the discomfort and embrace the uncertainty and not compulse and live into values. So Grace, I'm sure, is resonating with a lot of folks that are on here. And probably who find it hard to engage in ERP on your own. And so I want to keep this up for a second and look at some of the words that you've chosen here. So first of all, you wrote, I often cannot sit with the anxiety. It's very, very important to note that when we're in treatment and we have some education around OCD, we can say that whether you sit or choose to compulse, it's a choice. It's always a choice. It doesn't always feel like a choice, so I say this with a lot of humility, but we won't sit. I'm not willing to sit with the anxiety. I won't sit with the anxiety. I have to do what I have to do to make it go away. And I think recognizing that it's a choice is very important, because it lets you know that that is something you have control over. You don't have control over much, but you have control over your focus and your behavior, right? Can't control your thoughts, can't control your feelings. So those are going to happen, and those are going to create these uncomfortable situations. But recognize that you do have a choice. Now, somebody who never had therapy before, may not have that space between their feeling and their OCD to make that choice. And so therapy kind of widens that gap to let you get in there and say, wait, I don't have to do this. Do I want to work toward my values, or do I want to work toward OCD? Right. So as you dive into treatment and therapy, as you engage in this, that sort of gap where you notice that you have a choice becomes larger, and you feel like you have more opportunity to choose. But the first thing I want to make clear is that whether you sit with the anxiety or not is your choice. No one is physically holding you down to sit with anxiety, or to go compulse. No one's forcing you at gunpoint to go compulse, right? And that was the analogy that was used with me. It sounds really like catty and insensitive, but I just repeating what other people have told me. So that's number one. The biggest thing for me, Grace, is when I was so I say you're not alone, because for me, I felt like at my worst, I could teach anybody how to do ERP, but I couldn't execute it myself. And I thought I was working on it, but I really wasn't. And I wasn't doing it right. And I went through this for many, many months of really struggling with understanding the concept of OCD, of ERP, and understanding like what I was supposed to do, but what I call sort of the shift, right? Flipping the switch, being able to fully surrender to it was really, 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 really hard. So one of the things that helped, there were many things that helped, and we can talk about those, but one of the things that helped significantly was identifying what I was losing by choosing OCD. And this became really specific for me and really effective. So when my therapist would say, you need to fight your OCD, I didn't understand that. That didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. It's kind of an obtuse statement and weird and ambiguous. And so, but I did understand if you compulse, you're choosing not to have a meaningful relationship with somebody that you love or care about. You're choosing, I wanted to act at the time. You're choosing not to go on audition. You're choosing not to hang with your friends or watch a show or whatever is value driven and important to you. So suddenly these choices became about, do I choose OCD and do I choose the compulsion, or do I choose what I love, what I care about? And suddenly when you realize that when you're choosing OCD and compulsion, you're literally saying no to the thing you care about most. It's a strong realization. So, Grace, I know we've emailed a few times. I don't know what your passions are, but I'm just gonna make it up. Let's say you love to sing. Let's say you want to be a singer. So, you're not choosing OCD and a compulsion. I'm choosing no. I don't want to sing. I don't want to practice. I don't want to record a CD or a CD. Wow, I'm not old, I swear. I don't want to record, a video or whatever. I don't want to sing with my friends. You are literally saying no to the thing that you value most. And for me, when I made that very specific, what those no's were, I really questioned whether I wanted to compulse or not, because seeing it in that light, choosing no to things I deeply cared about suddenly became harder, and it made it specific and real to me. So what they're saying no to in order to compulse is different, right? So that was one thing that really helped me stay motivated outside of therapy, was choosing the things that I cared about most, and understanding that by choosing compulsions and OCD, I was saying no to those other things. Deirdre needs the swag. It's coming, Deirdre. 7:30, I'll give you the code, I promise. Pink Flower, can OCD make people become angry out of frustration? Absolutely. And I want to do a talk on anger and frustration and OCD. They're directly related, and not only the individual suffering with OCD, but people around them. listen, it's difficult because the stigma around OCD in the media is that, oh, it's cool, it's quirky, you like to have this, there's no like. We don't like this, we don't want to do it, right? We're not interested in having intrusive thoughts about killing our parents or hitting people, or I mean, like, we don't want it. So yeah, there's anger, there's frustration, there's aggravation, especially when you don't know a lot about it. Why is this happening to me? What's wrong with me? Am I broken? Is something wrong with my brain? Am I a bad person? Am I going to hell? Like, there's so much around this. So there's a lot of anger and there's a lot of frustration. And really, the anger and the frustration, I hope in many cases, can be alleviated with education and just understanding, A, you're not alone. B, what you're going through is common for individuals with OCD. Three, B, OCD is a brain disorder. It's a disease. It's cancer. It's diabetes. It's a disease and it's a disorder. It's not who you are, right? It is not a decision. And so, understanding some of those basic things about OCD can alleviate the anger and frustration. Also, OCD is a big, 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 big bully. And when you don't feed the bully, it gets really pissy. When it gets pissy, we get pissy. So, as you engage in treatment and therapy and are resisting compulsions and you're resisting engaging in things that alleviate anxiety, yeah, it makes you angry. It makes you frustrated when somebody doesn't help enable you or reassure you. It feels like it's an attack on you when really it's an attack on your OCD. And there's a lot more examples of reasons why people become angry and frustrated with OCD. Pink, you're definitely not alone. And, as you hang out, but if you have a specific question, how to manage the anger, frustration, if it's somebody that's around you, but I think just educating and getting more in tune with the community and hearing more about OCD, hopefully will begin to help. But no, there's lots of anger, there's lots of frustration, there's lots of tantrums, because when you're really in the midst of OCD, it just feels, you and the OCD feel like one. So, I know for me that when I was struggling and somebody would say, you can't do this, it terrified me, upset me, it made me angry. I would lash out because it sounded irresponsible and for lack of a better word, crazy. Like, for me, I was afraid I was accidentally going to hurt myself or take my life. So when people were like, no, go ahead and do this, I was like, what are you talking about? My life's at stake. How does that even make any sense? So I would get angry really quick because I didn't think people were taking me seriously, until I started to separate Ethan from the OCD and realize that they were two different things. And once I started to do that, now the last thing I'll talk about is after treatment. I got really angry at my OCD afterwards. I was feeling better. Life was much better. I was engaged in meaningful things. I was working. I was meeting people. I was dating. And I went, where'd my 30 years go? I was born at the age of 32 because I finally got OCD under control after 10 therapists and 20 years of searching and talk therapy and all this BS crap, until I found the right therapy and the right community and the right people. So I became pissed at OCD all over again and was angry and frustrated at, where did my life go? And this is where I should be right now. And I need to catch up. And all my friends are, married and they have 4-year-olds and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just doing this thing and I feel like I'm 18. So yeah, that's the short answer is, for sure. Anger and frustration is a completely normal thing. Hi, Cindy. This is a great question, even if it wasn't intended to be a great question. It was just after Pink's question. And I apologize. I'm not, usually I scroll down as people are talking and I'm not doing that, just kind of keeping up with people. So I apologize if you're talking, I'll catch up. But wondering why my OCD is flaring. Done so good for so long. God, this is such a great statement. So thank you, Cindy, for making this. And thank you for being brave enough to share. This is freaking awesome. So the why is because you have OCD. The other why, and OCD's behavior, it waxes and wanes. And that wax and wane can be a day here, a day there. It could be months. It could be years. And it very much feels like we failed ourselves when we're doing good, and then OCD comes back. Well, what did I do wrong? What did I do differently? I must have messed up somewhere. When in fact we have a disease. And if your diabetes is under control and managed, and suddenly you have a flare up, you're doing all the right things, but it flares up. That's because that's how diabetes works. That's the nature of the disease, and the nature of OCD is the same. Now, reasons why OCD can spike: seasons, stress, and stress. And it can be good stress or bad stress. Also, major milestones. I see a beautiful picture of you, and I think your baby. But milestones: pregnancy, birth, college, puberty, all of these things. But most of the time, stress can bring on OCD. Good stress or bad stress. So good stress is, oh my God, I got the promotion that I've always dreamed of. Holy crap, what if I mess it up? The more I have to lose. What if all this terrible crap happens? Holy moly, right? And then bad stress, ranging from like, I had a terrible day, to there's a death in the family or something traumatic. And all of those things can bring about OCD, and it's completely normal. And it's important to understand that there's a big difference between a lapse and a relapse. I'm a big fan of the word lapse. I think OCD, I can't tell you how many times that, some days, weeks, or months I'm doing great, and other times my OCD is really loud, and I have to fight really hard to keep from compulsing. And sometimes I don't win that battle and I do compulse. And I still ask the question, well, why? Katie will tell you, my girlfriend Katie, who's on, if you know her, but or my parents will tell you, or my therapist will tell you. And I'm giving you great advice, but I will tell you, in the midst of it, I'll be like, I don't understand why my OCD is flaring up. I was doing everything right. And my OCD will be like, my therapist will be like, well, you have OCD. I'm like, right. But why? Like, I'm better. I know the skills. I know the tools. It's OCD, and it's hard in the moment. But so, inevitably, the why should be really not as important. It's how we respond to it, right? So I think identifying some stressors and things like that in your life, are healthy, but we don't want to get too stuck on the why. Why is my OCD flaring up? We want to go with, well, because I have OCD, that's the nature of OCD. So what can I do about it? Do I need a booster session with my therapist? Do I need to engage? It's totally okay to bring those skills and tools back out. There are so many times where I have to work harder, and other times I don't have to work that hard at all to keep sort of OCD at bay, right? But I love this statement. I don't know that you meant it, but it's such a great question and such a great statement, and I know we can all relate. So hopefully that was helpful, Cindy. Love Lana. Think they're asking why orderliness is not an ideal way of behaving. I think that's what they were asking too. But let's go on. Are you my twin? I have been out there either. Beth. Okay, great. Grace wrote, I can empathize with your struggle. For me, struggling with contamination OCD during the pandemic has been a real challenge. And you're not alone, Grace. Areas in individuals or areas with specific subtypes and symptoms that really struggle during this pandemic have been health anxiety, contamination, just right, scrupulosity, moral scrupulosity, and I'm sure, what if I get someone sick? What if I go out and accidentally get someone sick? What if I'm asymptomatic and walk by somebody, and so forth and so on? When we were quarantining and really not leaving our houses, if you had harm OCD around yourself or someone else, being quarantined with them is very, very triggering. And so, COVID has really taken a toll. And actually I think I wanted to talk about COVID on the last community conversation, but I forgot. But it's taken a toll. And as Omicron has sort of come back, or as Omicron has surfaced and really sort of change the rules, I think for those of us, with OCD and anxiety, that kind of, we really are sensitive to these, oh, things are getting better. No, they're not better. Okay, yep, no, they're a little bit better. No, they're not better. Well, what do you do in that situation? And our OCD really wants to protect us, or protect someone we love, or protect someone we care about, because our brain goes, well, yeah, that doctor does say it's okay, but if it's not okay tomorrow, then maybe I shouldn't do it, because I don't want to put somebody at risk, or put myself at risk, or get sick, or get someone sick. And this kind of goes back to what I was talking about with COVID earlier. It's kind of like the healthiest approach is similar to everything else, which is embracing the uncertainty and being willing to cross that bridge when you get to it, which is really hard to do. It's really hard to do. I'm definitely not a master at it. I have to be reminded of it constantly. But that simply means take the information you have right now. in this moment and live by that information. And until you're given other information, that's what you do. And I understand the information out there is like totally conflicting, and counties are doing different things as state, and state different than federal, and this, understood. But I think we have to take the information that we have and use that to the best of our abilities to live a value-driven, move forward with momentum and positivity and fullness and gratitude, and see where we can get. And when we're given new information, then let that guide us, but try to determine where that line is between, and, sometimes asking other people is really helpful. Somebody that doesn't have OCD, what do you do? What are you comfortable doing? I wear a mask out. I try not to get too close to people. When I get home, I wash my hands and I sanitize after I leave the store. All right. Maybe that's something I can get used to. But yeah, the pandemic has been really hard. And I think in order to, and you don't need OCD, as I said, to struggle with this. Lots of people are struggling with this for many different reasons. But, how many times have we seen on TV these lawsuits for these drugs that are out in the market that cause cancer? But when they came out, they were really popular drugs. I took Zantac, which is an heartburn antacid. I took it every day for years because I think, first of all, it was obsessive because I was afraid of throwing up. So I took it all the time. Later on, I actually did have heartburn. Out of nowhere, they pull it from the shelves, and there's, cancer-causing agents. And now I'm starting to see, like, did you get cancer from Zantac? My point in that example is, like, we had the information at that time. I lived by that information. When new information came out, I went, crap, nothing I can do about it. I stopped taking the medication, and we're moving forward. And it's kind of a loose analogy for, like, at any time, somebody can say, hey, broccoli is really bad for you. We just did some new studies, and it turns out that chocolate eclairs are the healthiest thing you can eat. So at any point in time, we could get new information. And we really can't live to guard ourselves against information that may or may not come out, because inevitably that's just protecting OCD, and which is not helping ourselves. So we kind of just have to take the info that we have now and be willing to accept a little risk and uncertainty in an effort to move forward and live a value-driven life. Nick wrote, I've recently been noticing when my mind gets triggered, it immediately goes to catastrophizing. Then I just obsess on all the worst possibilities. I've been working on maybe, maybe not, but as you know, the mind is relentless. It just doesn't seem to work. Any other tips? It's a great comment, Nick. And I mean, I catastrophize. I'm sure so many folks here catastrophize. So you are not alone. And typically my catastrophe is like, I either end up homeless or dead, but it starts with, like, I can't find my sock. It's like the most tiny little thing, butterfly effect, that is suddenly, becomes something monumental. Nick, I would challenge you to think about how much you embrace the maybe, maybe not mantra. The mind is relentless, but as long as we hold on to that possibility, as long as we hold on to the possibility that we need to continue to guard ourselves from whatever we fear, then the OCD will take advantage of that and be a monster and continue to terrorize you. If your catastrophizing is, I'm going to lose everything, then you actually have to be willing to be okay with the possibility of you potentially losing everything in order to not care about it, to where the brain finally doesn't care about it, right? We're not wishing that on ourselves. We're not asking for it, right? But we're willing to say, it's probably OCD. Fine, let it happen, right? My big fear when I was really sick, hitting my head, having a brain bleed at any moment. So I've said this before, where it shifted for me was I was literally near death, not functioning, and nobody was coming to help me. So I was like, you know what? I just have to be willing to hit my head and have a brain bleed every day. And I 100% went there, where there was no part of me that was guarding against it. I was uncomfortable. I was crying. My anxiety was a 40 out of 10. But over time, suddenly I cared less and less because I stopped protecting what little piece. So this is 100% all-in effort, and it's really hard to do, especially as we get to toward the top of our hierarchy. But we really have to think about, am I fully surrendering to this fear? Am I really letting this totally be there and be willing to be there and live with the understanding that it's OCD and probably won't be, and it's terrifying and scary, but I will cross that bridge when I get to it. So I would do some self-reflection, Nick, and think about like how willing you are to scare yourself, because ultimately that is the true freedom for OCD. Embracing that uncertainty 100%. Yes, maybe, maybe not. And then truly letting that maybe sit there, because sometimes we say maybe, maybe not, but we're really going, God, I hope not. Maybe not. No, it's not going to happen. Like, what is our inner dialogue, right? So we really want to embrace that maybe and take it for what it is. I'm going to go a little quicker because I know there's a lot of questions and I want to continue answering. These are all great. Thank you so much. Pink flower, I developed COVID phobia. I would just stay in a room and not step out, sleep to avoid religious obsessive thoughts. Where can I find a therapist who understands Islam teletherapy from Bangladesh? Great question, Pink. We're working so hard to support individuals in other countries, other religions, and faith traditions. Gosh, there is it's kind of amazing. So I don't know. I want to give you, there's a couple resources out there. I don't know if Katie weighed in or not. But one of our lead advocates is an interfaith that works in the intersection of faith and mental health and a variety of religious faiths, including Islam. And I don't know what her time capacity is, or whether she works internationally, but this is a great question, and I want you to be support and have support. And so I'll give an email out at the end, Pink, and we'll see how we can get you. So, and that goes for anyone else. We'll see how we can get you support and help you find. There are therapists in the U.S. I know, obviously, in Bangladesh there isn't many opportunities. There are therapists in the U.S. that treat internationally as well. And, that might be a really good opportunity. So I don't know if we have an international list or a list of individuals that treat international, but there are a handful that I refer to when people reach out to me. So Pink, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'll give you an email. Just go ahead and put up my email, Fran. Let's just do the Just Ethan email. I'll keep using it for now until somebody yells at me. So this is my email. Feel free to write it down. I think Fran's hunting for it. Sorry, Fran, to put you on the spot. I'm going to scroll down. But if you go to justethan at IOCDF.org, here it comes. Feel it coming. Unless it was deleted. Either way, Just Ethan, JUSTETHAN. Thank you, Fran. Appreciate you, man. Sorry I'm moving so quickly. Email me there. I answer those emails directly. And it may take me a few days to get back to you, but email me there, and I'll connect you with the IOCDF, and we'll try to find some resources for you to the best of our ability. And this is why we're here. This is why we're doing what we're doing, so people can access treatment anywhere, no matter where they are, no matter what they're dealing with, no matter what their faith is, where they're from, who they are, income, whatever. This is why we're doing this. So Pink, there's help, there's hope, and hopefully we can support you. And thank you for sharing. I appreciate that a lot. Aritra wrote, could you please show some light on OCD and its relation to depression when an adverse event hits us, personal, professional setback? Sure, of course. OCD and depression are very closely related. Whether depression is a primary diagnosis or secondary to the OCD, very common for depression to follow significant OCD, and especially in an adverse event such as it's hard to know without your specific details, Aritra. I hope I'm saying that right. What comes first, but I can tell you, obviously, as the OCD is exacerbated, as the functionality becomes less, depression very quickly sets in, right? Because you're not doing the things that are meaningful to you. You're struggling, the compulsions are increasing, the obsessions are increasing, the anxiety is increasing. And so OCD and depression are very interrelated. Many times, though, there's a primary diagnosis of depression and then a secondary diagnosis of OCD, where sort of the depression is the main, and OCD is a completely separate entity. And I'm not a clinician, I can't speak to whether that's the case or not. But very common. I talked about bad stress, or distress versus eustress, and obviously personal professional setbacks, losing a job, a breakup, whatever, right? It's very normal and natural. You don't need an anxiety disorder or a mental illness to experience depression or sadness. And it's very common for those stress triggers to increase OCD as well. So, that is the quick relationship between the two. Also, if you have, I'm going to continue to try and move through these questions quickly. I'm not I was going to say I'm not a concise talker, as I completely ramble about not answering questions. Let me just keep going here. Spirit in Motion. Can you recommend a treatment center that has high success rate in the Boston area for someone with severe OCD? Yeah, Boston is an amazing place to be if you are struggling with OCD. There is phenomenal resources. I can give you the resource directory. Fran, I'm sure Fran already posted the resource directory in the list. I'm in the comment thread, but super quickly, McLean Hospital, MCLEAN, has an amazing inpatient, residential, and intensive outpatient program for OCD. MGH, Mass General, has an amazing program. And there's also the IOCDF is based in Boston, and there is a large amount of private clinicians as well. So, if you want to hit the resource directory link, you can also send an email to the IOCDF, and they'd be happy to forward you a lot of recommendations for a treatment in Boston. Boston's a great spot to be in. Also, keep in mind, if you don't live in a major city but live in the state, so if you live in Massachusetts, all therapists are virtual now. Most therapists are virtual because of COVID. It's one of the small silver linings. So you can access therapy if you don't live near a major city or a major hub, and you're kind of in rural or outskirts. You really just need to be in the state where there's licensure, where the therapists are licensure. So if you're 3 hours away from treatment, still look in those areas, because chances are people are doing virtual treatment now. So that's another way to engage. Gamer Lab, I have a needle phobia and I would like some advice when you can, please. I would need a little bit more information, and whether, when you say a phobia is different than OCD in the sense that you can have a fear of something, like heights or elevators or small spaces, and you can avoid those, but you don't necessarily, there isn't a compulsive part to it, right? And while I said avoidance is compulsion, there has to be, there's long-term exposure therapy, just exposure therapy, where we expose you to things that I don't do it, but you're exposed to things that you're afraid of. Like if you have a fear of spiders, eventually you're going to hold a spider, and sort of sitting with that and experiencing that, but there's no response prevention component because there aren't compulsions. If it's more of an OCD related fear of needles, you have fear, if I go near one, I'm going to stab my eye out, or I'm going to stab somebody else, or what if this, or what if it has AIDS, whatever it is, right? Then that would be more OCD related, and we would engage in some response prevention to those compulsions. Regardless, the number one thing is you can access treatment and therapy. I mean, that's the best thing you can do for anyone that's dealing with any of these things, is accessing treatment, accessing therapy, if it's possible. And we will always help you to do our best to support you in that endeavor. I'm going to keep going here. I'm going to try to get to some questions. Let's see here, to some questions that haven't been. Oh, hoodie promo codes. John, yes, real quick. Here it is, 10% off. The code is Ethan10. I don't want to take credit, but I came up with this myself. Ethan10, hit up the merch store, shirts, hoodies, pins, and pins. There's magnets. There's a lot of cool. I love some of the shirts too. Ethan10. I don't know if we decided how long it's going to be up, but you know what? Visit, 10% off. I've never seen them do a fire sale, so this is it. This is your chance. Check it out. And sponsored by John for the inspiration. So thank you, for sure. Let me keep. Yeah, let me keep going down. Mike Sizemore, 7:24 p.m. Like Dr. Jonathan Grayson asked people, what have you lost to OCD? Exactly. So, in identifying what those losses are, and and making those specific and reminding yourself. Um, oh, so the coupon code will be up till the end of February. The 2-month hookup. Hey now. So great point, Mike. Absolutely. So Derek at 724, have you ever pondered an old memory only to discover disturbing details from it that you don't know are true or not true? Absolutely. There's elements of OCD called false memories, where we're not sure whether they happened or not, and or aspects of a memory that may or may not have happened. And what makes it even more disconcerting, whether it actually is a memory or it's a false memory, um, is the attachment of emotion and the attachment of feeling. So, for instance, if you have a memory of being somewhere and hurting someone, and you were never there and you never hurt someone, but you can see it, you can feel it, it's detailed, you could describe it, but then you have that emotional connection. Feelings, when it comes to OCD, really support the belief. If I think it, it's one thing. If I feel it, there must be something to it, because I wouldn't feel it otherwise. So feelings can be very deceptive when it comes to OCD, which is why I'll hear a lot of therapists talk about, feelings don't matter when it comes to OCD. Never saying feelings aren't valid, but we don't want to pay that close attention to feelings, because they can really they tend to support the OCD more than they support us. So you are definitely not alone, Derek, in sort of looking at old memories and then disturbing details. And you approach that just like any other, which is, and let me preface what I'm about to say. Not a therapist, not a clinician. There are times, I'm sure, when individuals' memories have surfaced, around tragic things have happened, and those things need to be addressed. Assuming this is specific to OCD, that's my caveat. You address this similarly, which is the maybe not, right? Oh God, I don't know. Perhaps that was part of it. I'm not sure. I know that I have OCD. I know that I tend to veer in this direction. So I'm just gonna take that for what it is. And you can always bounce it off, a therapist or somebody that you're working with. But I always say with OCD, if it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, and talks like a duck, it's most likely a duck. So for me, I tend to treat OCD like it's always OCD, because and I don't mind being wrong sometimes. I ate bad coleslaw one time. I talk about that, and it made myself sick just because I wasn't willing to not eat it, because I thought, oh, this tastes funny. Well, what if it's all in my head? I would rather that than sort of go back to where I was. I'm not saying that's healthy. I'm just saying that was my choice. But at the end of the day, especially if you're in treatment, or you're just starting with treatment, or you're navigating OCD, if you get that sense of I'm not sure, if you get that sense of this could be, just assume it's OCD and move forward. Just assume it is. I can't tell you how helpful that was in my own treatment and my own recovery, especially because we can get really obsessive about, is this OCD or is this not OCD? And should I listen to it or should I not listen to it? And should I do it or should I not do it? Just assume it is. Just assume it is and move forward. Because in reality, when it's not, it's not. You absolutely know it's not. There have been so many times in my life where when I had health anxiety, I wanted to go to the hospital, and I wasn't sure. And is it OCD? But I do have this weird feeling, and I'm not sure. The few times that I have been to the ER, there was no question. There was no doubt I needed to go. Like, it wasn't even a thought of me like, hell, I don't know. It could be. It was like, I need to go to the ER. Something's definitely wrong. You know what I'm saying? So if you're getting that vibe, even if it's small, start to treat it like it's OCD. But again, Derek, I don't know your entire situation. So my number one suggestion would be to process, with a therapist or somebody that you're comfortable talking to. And you are welcome, Leanne. My pleasure. Oh, thank you, Carol. I appreciate that. And please tell your daughter we wish her the best, and we support her in anything that she needs. So, yep, there's the post. Great. Sorry, I'm just scrolling down, not trying to be quiet. I know Fran pinged me that there were so many questions, so I really just want to continue to. Great comments, everyone, and thank you so much for your candor and your honesty. I love this, Beth. We can't compare ourselves to other people. It's different for all of us. Keep on keeping on. Be kind to yourself. That's at 7:29 p.m. Fran. Beth. Beth's. I love her insights and pieces of wisdom. I to this day I will never forget crying and washing dishes. And I love Beth when you comment. So thank you. Alexandra doing the whole interview about health anxiety. Alexandra, you'll have to let us know where that's going to be. Eric, are we still doing monthly trivia under the new schedule? No, we're not. It got pushed. And I think they cited you as, no, I'm kidding. It did get pushed. And I think trivia will make appearances, but probably, twice a year, something like that. We have so many live streams. It really just became a bandwidth issue. But I'm with you, man. We would love to do it. And there will be times where we bring it back. So stay tuned. You will be the first to know. So yeah, sorry. That's super depressing. I do want to, Syntax wrote, Dr. David Burns was talking about a hidden emotion model on one of the latest OCD Stories podcasts. I haven't heard that one yet, Syntax. He describes resurfacing OCD episodes as potential sign of hidden, unresolved emotion. Interesting. I definitely want to give that OCD Stories a listen and see. I think that's going to be a good one. So thank you for sharing, Syntax. Appreciate it. Lisa at 7:31. How can I encourage my 18-year-old son with high functioning autism, depression, and severe contamination OCD? He is horribly afraid to participate in OCD. Lisa, I can tell you that the treatment of OCD with someone with autism is different in the way they approach ERP, and it's really important that you work with a clinician that is very well versed in ASD and OCD. And the good thing is there's lots of help, there's lots of hope, and there's lots of support. We have some really good town halls on this very subject with a dear friend of ours who has ASD and OCD and talks about her experiences as well. I think their experiences. I apologize on the pronoun. But Lisa, depending on where you live, I don't know if your son is in treatment. But I can definitely make some recommendations to you. There's some brilliant ASD OCD therapists. So if you want to hit me up with your email, I'd be happy to, depending on where you live, direct you to some folks that might be able to help. It's just a different approach because of the autism, but it's definitely treatable. Leanne, are these live scheduled for this day, time every week? Different times, different schedules. This is every other Tuesday. If you hit up at the end of the stream, I will give you a link and you can check out the schedule of everything we have going on. So, but this particular one is every other Tuesday. So it'll not be next Tuesday, but the Tuesday after, same time, 7 p.m. Eastern. Fran, on top of the questions already. Thank you so much for the kind comments. Lisa continued, he has no motivation anymore and is hardly able to get out of bed because the OCD is so out of control. He knows as soon as he gets up, the OCD cycle will start and he will get stuck in the bathroom all day. Yep. I'm so sorry for that, Lisa, that you and your son and your family are going through that. I can tell you that to my point, at-home therapy is a possibility. Also with virtual therapy, he can take the call in bed if he's willing. And there's also a whole willingness to change the model and things like that. So again, we'll see if you can connect you with some folks that can help Lisa. Let's see here. I'm going to get through everybody's questions. I swear. I appreciate you, Fran, helping with the question answering. Mike Sizemore, 7:41 p.m. Ethan, I know you're not a clinician, but do you personally think that OCD itself can cause PTSD in a person? Yes, I do. So I'm not a clinician. That is not a clinical answer. That is a personal experience answer. It's a great question. And we've talked about doing some panels on this at the conferences. I think there's a number of ways that PTSD can manifest as a because of OCD. I have PTSD because of experiences that I had with the treatment of OCD, actually the mistreatment of OCD, to be honest, with therapists that didn't know how to treat OCD and did some things that were really traumatizing. But I know individuals that have PTSD around things that they did as compulsions. I know individuals that were traumatized because of treatment and therapy. most of that isn't the correct therapy, but that doesn't mean that ERP can't cause that either. I know that isn't the best sales pitch for ERP, but we have to, be candid and honest as possible here. Now that's obviously not specific to the OCD itself. It's because of the OCD and the treatment you saw it, or they saw it. So needless to say, yeah, PTSD can definitely be a byproduct of OCD for a number of reasons, whether it's the OCD itself. I mean, honestly, Mike, I don't know if I'm correct in labeling some of my experiences PTSD. I know some of them are 100% are, and I've processed them with my therapist and done DBT around them and some EMDR. But I can tell you, even just the experience of having OCD, missing out on certain things, and deep intrusive thoughts that are so disturbing, they feel traumatic. So yeah, I believe so. And I know that to be true. And there's a lot of instances where PTSD can surface. Alexandra, if she's still on, does a lot of work with PTSD and OCD as well. So I don't know if she's still on. She's a good resource as well. Thank you for the love, Lana. Appreciate you. 3 minutes. We'll get there. We're at 7:48 p.m. Eric B. wrote, "Hi, Ethan. I had some neuropsych testing for some possible comorbid conditions and then suddenly had a delayed compulsive reaction 5-6 hours later. Have you experienced delayed reactions triggers?" Absolutely. Oh, for sure. Yeah, 100%. A lot of times I'm okay in the moment. And so does Katie, honestly. So many times I'm okay in the moment, and 5-6 hours later, to your point, suddenly I'm like stricken with intense anxiety and the need to compulse around it, where in that moment it didn't bother me at all, and I was able to get past it. As to why, maybe I was distracted, maybe there are other things going on, maybe I was sucking it up for somebody, I don't know. But oh yeah, totally. No, that's happened to me, and I know it happens to a ton of folks, where in the moment, and then there's this delayed moment where it's like, oh my God, what if this, what if that, I better do all this stuff. And so 100%, Eric. Denise wrote, "What about real event OCD, intense guilt with intense fear of creating new events that will call?" Yeah, that's, I could go on for an hour on real event OCD. I know we've got 2 minutes left, and there's some questions, a lot of questions left, actually. I want to be cognizant of everybody's times. Oh, well, Fran said he can run long. Let's go an extra few minutes. Thank you, Fran. Appreciate it. So real event OCD and intense guilt that accompanies it is common, and it's difficult, and it's uncomfortable, and the fear of creating new events that will cause even more guilt is similar to the fear of engaging in something that may result in a fear happening. And so we kind of have to address the intense fear of creating new events similar to how we would address really any other symptom of OCD. Whether it be contamination or fears of harm or whatever it is, right? Because at the end of the day, we have to realize that, and this is a realization that I made sort of at the bottom for me, but it's something that I lean on always. And it's the realization that, ironically, we talk about embracing uncertainty because there's so little certainty in life. We have so little control over, But ironically, something that is certain is that if you continue to, in general, not you specifically, Denise, if you continue to engage in compulsions and rituals and avoidance, your OCD will get worse. That's certain. So ironically enough, is the choices are choosing OCD and having certainty that you will continue to experience it and your world will get smaller, or choose to take the risk and move toward your values, even though you fear, in this case, creating a new event or experiencing more guilt. What are the options? What is OCD taken away from you, as Mike wrote, or Dr. Grayson said, but Mike wrote. And for me, in that moment, when I had that realization, it became very clear that if one path was certainty toward, and I was already not functioning, so like I don't know what my world would have been, but it wouldn't have been good. So if one path was certainty toward OCD and the other path was, or at least felt like, a roll of the dice, but I had a shot at a meaningful life, that's when it became obvious that I'm gonna go that route. I'm gonna take the shot. So the question, Denise, and the question for everyone here, the question is, are you willing to take the risk? Are you willing to take the risk? Are you willing to choose the uncertainty in an effort to live a meaningful, full, value-driven life? Or are you willing to choose compulsions and avoidance and OCD and the certainty that comes along with that, which is you will continue to obsess, you will continue to compulse, and your world will get smaller? Risk is at the end of the day, we have to understand that this is a disease and this is a disorder, and we can't always see the other end of where we're being asked to jump, which is what makes this treatment so scary. So it feels riskier than it actually is, because if you could see the other side, we'd all jump there. But if somebody says jump that way and it's completely dark and you don't know what you're jumping into, it's like, I don't know about that, especially when your brain is screaming at you to not do it. Is there uncertainty? Is there a risk that the fear may happen? Sure. Maybe, maybe not. But the certainty around that OCD will take your life away, whatever that means, that's very real and very certain. And just being super candid, super honest, super direct, that's really what you're choosing between. And so I know it's terrifying, and I know it's scary, and I know it's uncomfortable, and I know it seems irresponsible, and all of those things. But how willing are you to scare yourself to have a full life, to engage in things that are meaningful for you, and be willing to let the possibility that whatever it is may happen in order to live that beautiful life? Because the other choice is to not live it. So for me, when I made that realization, was presented with those two options, the option became clear, and that I was willing to walk through the fire. There's no way around it. There's no way above it. There's no way below it. You have to walk through it. Does that mean that life is perfect now? No. Does that mean that I don't have obsessions and compulsions? No. Does that mean that I don't have bad days? I have bad days. I have bad weeks. But it means that I also have a lot of good days, and I have a lot of OCD-free days, and I have a lot of meaningful days, and my life is in a place where I never would have imagined it would be. And it came down to that choice and continuing to choose that. So I know there's lots more questions. I think that's a good thing to end on, because at the end of the day, the symptoms all seem different. There's different stigma associated with different symptoms and subtypes. At the end of the day, that choice, no matter what you deal with OCD, is the absolute same. It's the absolute same. Are you willing to live with the possibility, the uncertainty? Or are you not? And if you're not, are you going to continue to protect? And by the way, you're not protecting yourself. You're protecting your OCD. Make that very clear. You're not protecting yourself. It feels like you're protecting yourself, but you're protecting your OCD. So with that, real quick, got a notice that was a good place to end, but 7:50. To Pink, if you're still here, Pink, Katie wrote at 7:53, sorry, just got off the treadmill, but heard the question on culturally competent treatment for Islam. There are a lot of great clinicians who can help. The biggest thing is that they treat the ERP Beyond Borders CBT treats internationally. I just led a training for their clinicians today on religious literacy, including Islam, and they're awesome. So Beyond Borders CBT, Pink, if you want to Google search them. But also, as I said, feel free to email me. So thank you for that, Katie. Appreciate you. And thank you, Fran, for pointing that out. Okay, with all of that, I so apologize if I didn't get to your comments and your questions. But thank you so much for contributing and for, and yes, Leanne, I do have OCD free days, and it is possible. And I firmly believe that we can all get there. I mean, the whole reason I became an advocate was I always felt if I could get better, everyone could get better. And if you, I'm going to have Fran post, I always make him do this, but post a link to my keynote speech in 2014. If you don't know my story, if you don't know what I went through, and I'm not saying that like, oh, what I went through, I'm just saying like, watch this speech. I have footage of it when I was really sick. And I firmly believe that if I can get better, everyone can get better. And that's why I continue to scream and yell and go over time and say things that, you know, who knows what I'm saying. But at the end of the day, I truly believe that we all have the capacity to live a full life. And yes, everybody's circumstances is different. And I don't pretend to sit here and know how grateful and lucky I am that I was able to access treatment and good treatment after looking for 20 years. But that's why we're doing what we're doing. Won't stop, can't stop until everyone has access to affordable, effective, accessible care. That's it. That's our goal. That's the IOCDF's goal. That's my goal. That's our advocates' goal. That is our purpose. And so that's what we'll continue to do. So with that, just some quick housekeeping. Once again, Ethan 10, IOCDF merch store. It's up till February. Pick up the goods, man. I don't even when I try to sound cool, it sounds stupid. But hoodies. Oh, Cindy and more. Me too, Ethan. I was so sick between meds and CBT. I have days, weeks without OCD. So it's. Thank you, Cindy, for 8:08 p.m. Fran. I love that. And that's why, Cindy, and that's why probably when it comes back, you're like, wait a second, you know. Yes, to your point. That's why it's like, well, wait, what's happening here? Why, what's going on? So that makes a lot of sense, Cindy. And syntax props, that made me laugh. If you can't afford therapy, there are always memes. Listen, you know, you have to fight for therapy. And that is not best case scenario for anyone. Okay. And, you know, No CD, who's a partner of the IOCDF, is offering, you know, in the States right now, and in the UK and Canada, you know, more cost-effective ERP treatment. They take some insurances. They're virtual based through your phone. You know, they're starting to eliminate geography. You know, it's a slow process, but the reality is don't be afraid to ask questions of therapists. Don't be afraid to push to see if your insurance can get. There's always exceptionality. Liz talks about it. She knows more about it. Well, she's a therapist, but you know, ask about a super bill. Ask your insurance companies. You know, sometimes there's no excuse for you having to fight this hard to get help for anything. It's awful, and I'm sorry. But the reality is that you know, don't be afraid to fight for it. Ask questions. Ask if there's a sliding scale. Ask if they'll do pro bono, even if it's once a month. What do they recommend? It's hard to advocate for yourself. There's actually some really good articles on the IOCDF website about finding therapy and advocating for yourself, but it's worth it. And in the meantime, you know, we're doing the best we can to move forward, and together we will. Together we will make a small dent. All right, super quick. I want to thank Fran behind the scenes in the IOCDF. I reversed that. I want to thank the IOCDF and Fran behind the scenes. I just want to say for keeping the light on. So thank you, Fran, for keeping the lights on. Did I mention 10% off of the IOCDF store? Ethan 10, get your hoodie. It's behind me. I wear my hoodie all the time. It's super comfortable. There it is. It's right there. They have a hoodie in blue. I should have whipped out all the merch, but they have a hoodie in blue and a hoodie in black. It's crazy comfortable. It's crazy comfortable. I love it. I live in this hoodie. It stinks. My cats live in it too. All right. So super quick. This live stream is one of many. You can view the entire schedule and on iocdf.org/peace of mind. Listen, some new features on this website. One is I know I gave my email out, but you can ask questions of anybody on any stream. You can visit. I think I wrote this down. Yeah, you can visit. Fill out this form link if you have additional questions. Or if you have topic suggestions, there's a drop down with the stream, and then you can ask who you want. So visit iocdf.org/peace of mind. Full schedule of events, all the live streams. We have live streams every week, Tuesdays and Wednesdays. They're all recorded. You can access the libraries on Facebook and YouTube, as well as ask questions and all of the above. Also, this is the last week for conference presentations. So if you want to submit, there's a topic you want to talk about, it's a topic that needs to be talked about. If you've been to a conference like, why are they talking about this? Submit a topic. iocdf.org/conferences. We're taking submissions for both the live conference in July in Denver, as well as the virtual conference. And there's also a load of other conferences as well. So visit iocdf.org/conferences. Lastly, tomorrow, Lunch and Learn, 12 p.m. Eastern. This is an awesome panel. Liz and Chris will be moderating Sexual Orientation OCD, a clinical conversation. They have an unbelievable panel. So 12 p.m. tomorrow, Facebook, YouTube, all the usual spots. Remember, if you please subscribe and follow on YouTube and Facebook, as well as Twitch. Hey now. And always never hesitate to reach out to the IOCDF at info@iocdf.org, or you can visit iocdf.org and submit questions, comments, and concerns through there as well. Last but not least, I'll give out my email one time. I know I offered to help some folks access treatment, or at least we can work on it together. Just Ethan@iocdf.org. Please don't hesitate to reach out. I may take a few days, but I will get back to you, slowly catching up on emails. With that, thank you for sticking around. Thank you for being awesome. Thank you for advocating and being honest and open and sincere and passionate and caring. And Michael, we will talk about magical thinking OCD. If you have questions, also, I'm every other week, but next week there's Ask the Experts. There's Lunch and Learns. You can ask lots of questions with Dr. Liz and Chris. So bring your questions next week as well. Thank you, Syntax. I appreciate it. I was just glad I got your name right, because when I first looked at it, I was like, oh, Syntax. I'm like, nope, P silent. And love you too, Lana. With that, as always, have a wonderful evening. Stay safe, stay vigilant, fill the feels, don't let OCD off the hook. And we will see you 2 weeks from tonight. Also, 10% off. Ethan 10 at the merch store. Hit it up. Good stuff. Good night.